Hi and welcome to another Repaint video. Finally, I can share my Alice in Wonderland. I got so many comments on my Alba the Albino Hedgehog about your favorite books. I actually wrote them all down and, well, I might have bought some. That's what I do. I buy books and I don't know things. I already read Stargirl and I loved it so much. It does change the way you see things. This is my bookshelf. All these books that lie down haven't earned their place in my bookshelf yet. I haven't read them. I'm a KonMari fan, so if they don't spark joy, I give them away after reading, hence I have a lot fewer books than I should have. Anyway, let's go back to Alice. I used Rorelei from Cave Club as a base. She's so pretty and I loved her hair. It was not this easy to detach the head, by the way. I wanted to keep the hair because it was so pretty, so I tied it with tiny rubber bands before cutting it off. I think I'll make wefts out of it in a future project. After cutting it off, I scrape the rest out of the plugs with a flat screwdriver. This is always so satisfying. Then I go neurosurgery and take the hair out. I'm still amazed at how they just melted the hair instead of gluing it. It's so neat. Since the head is made out of vinyl, I can use 100% acetone to rub the paint off. I didn't see it before, but look at that smirk. After a layer of MSC, I can start on the Faceup. I used to do 2 or sometimes 3 base layers of Mr. Superclear, but now I only do 1. My critical points were right in front of the ears. In the beginning I only sprayed from the front and it left the sides with an uneven layer, which in turn made my blushing look blotchy and dirty. Now I spray in 3 angles, the front and on the 2 sides. I hope it makes sense. Mr. Superclear is expensive, so I try to be efficient. Here I was inspired by Delightful to use orange at the end of the eyebrows. I like the effect. Usually I make them more natural, but I wanted to play around a bit and it was fun. Then I added some pink eyeshadow. I didn't want her to look like she has full makeup on, so I was careful not to add too much. She also got pink blushing on the cheekbones, on the nose bridge, forehead and chin. Second layer! On this repaint I added a yellow ring around the pupil. I don't know, I've seen all these artists who have contrasting colors in the eyes and make it work, so why not? I should also be able to do it. I also barely used any black in the pupils, only dark brown. On this layer I used a lot of white to highlight. It can take a couple of layers to build up a color, especially if it's meant to brighten areas. I do some waterline, some eye white, some obscure lines underneath the eyes, I don't know why. And a milk mustache. I mean lip highlight, obviously. Here I'm going in with a dark blue pastel to put some shade inside the eyes, then some outside the eye, then some tiny amount of black around one side of the pupil. If circles have sides. Anyway, I also give the lady some eyelashes and some eye definitions. I also worked some more on the eyebrows. Here I added blue to the temples and then I moved on to freckles. I use pastels mixed with water. It makes it so smooth and it's easy to erase some if it gets too much. I also work on the mouth and some random shading. Finally, before sealing, I add blue veins. It just makes it a bit more realistic. The third layer and I build up the colors some more, adding some fine details in the eyes and work more on the eyelashes. This layer is basically another second layer, to be honest. I do the same thing over again with blushing and lines and freckles and whatnot, so I'm gonna keep this brief. There we go! Time to bring out the heavy artillery! Acrylics. I used the Army Painter acrylics. I haven't tried any other meant for miniature painting, so it's not much of a preference as it is haven't tried any other, I'm happy with these. I mixed black and brown for the lashes and I messed up. Then I fixed it. I think I need to water down the lighter paint to create more of a layered effect. That would be cool. But that's what I love about editing these videos. Editing is a hard word to say. Anyway, I can rewatch and see what I can do better. If you're an artist, I really highly recommend it. Finally, it's time for some Tamiya gloss varnish. I got the question of why I use Tamiya and not Liquitex, and that's because Liquitex gloss varnish tends to turn sticky with time if you use it on vinyl. At least it did for me, so I use Tamiya on Faceups, but as you'll see later, I'll use Liquitex on other types of plastic. And here we go, the Faceup is done. I decided to paint her hands too. I use a mix of red, blue and yellow pastels until I have the color I want, then I add veins, wrinkles and freckles. I also went in with a super light off-white pencil to paint the nails. I'd say it makes a difference. I ordered doll hair, but it still hasn't arrived, still stuck in customs, so I did everything else first. This pattern I made for Alba, and I remember I said the armholes were a bit too big, so I altered it before using it on Alice. This is the altered pattern. Then I measured the sleeves. I actually wanted to be a fashion designer at one point, so I was all into pattern making and stuff. But if you want to see a real one, head over to Kiro's workshop, he knows what he is doing. I made a little sleeve pattern meant for just a regular sleeve, but I wanted to make puff sleeves, so I took the common sleeve pattern, cut it into strips, and then fanned them out like this. Then I taped them in place before cutting out the modified pattern, and this is what I have now. I used the same skirt pattern as on Alba since it worked really well. Next, I trace it on the fabric and cut all the pieces out. The top part gets a mirrored version. I also added a rectangle for the cuffs. This fabric was so nice to work with. It was light but not transparent and it didn't fray that badly. With all the pieces cut out, I start by sewing the front part together. I also fixed the darts. I also made a decorative seam along the front to make it look like a shirt dress. I don't know, I think it's cute. Then I gathered the sleeves. I should have probably done this before, but I added the cuffs to the sleeves. Honestly, fabric glue is so helpful. Instead of pinning, which can be a hassle when working on such tiny clothes, I glue the seams together before sewing. That way you reduce the risk of fraying too, so win-win. After adding the cuffs, I can sew the sleeves to the top part. That I do by hand while watching a movie. Then I trim off the excess and sew the sides together. Finally, I glue the seams so they don't fray. More fabric glue? Who would have guessed? Here I am, the lower part of the skirt. It would have been cute with lace at the bottom, but I decided to stick to the reference and stitch it. Then I gathered it and glued it to the top part before sewing. Finally, I sewed it shut in the back. I make the seam go to right below where the top part starts, then I glue the side off the rest. I should have added a collar first, but I forgot about it, so I did that by hand off camera. The dress is finished. Next I made socks. I made 2 tubes, edited the seam and sewed the ends. It's hard to explain. I tried making a pattern and it was basically impossible. I messed up. Next is the apron. It consisted of some geometrical shapes, nothing fancy, but first I sketched the design. I decided to embroider the pattern on it, which I'm glad I did because it looked so cute in the end. It was so worth the time. And here are the pattern pieces. I traced it on white fabric, cut the pieces out and hemmed them all with more fabric glue. With all the pieces finished, I went to the sewing machine. I used paper underneath while sewing, it helps a lot while making such small pieces, then I tear it apart where the seams are. Before embroidering, I sketched the pattern with a light blue pencil. And there we go, one movie later I had this. I am so proud of myself. I gather the top part of the skirt, then I glue that part. It makes it so much easier to sew it on the top part later. Instead of sewing the panel to the skirt separately, I did that while hemming the waistband thing. I'm not sure I'm using the right terminology here, but I hope it's okay. I attach these very much the same, adding a cute little bead while sewing. This is how it looks so far. I crossed them in the back and sew them to the waistband, then I realized she wouldn't be able to take it off once the head is in place. But I figured she'll be Alice in Wonderland and that's okay. This apron is probably the part I love the most about her. She also got a black headband like the one in the movie. Honestly, I never liked the film from 1997. I love the book, but the Disney movie didn't really capture the charm of the characters. It lacked warmth somehow, I don't know. Not a fan. Here I make a little bow barbecue. I added it to a piece of ribbon and decided to attach it with needles. Next is shoes. I made the soles out of black polymer clay in two parts. First the base of the soles, then the rest of the shoes. My pasta maker was really helpful to get it all even. I was nervous about this because I seldom make shoes from scratch. So I spent some days planning and thinking, and then trying and failing, but it turned out all right in the end. After smoothing it all down, flipping them over and messing with the shape a bit, it went into the oven. Then I added more clay under the toes, made some kind of front to them and threw them into the oven a second time. For the back of the shoes I used ribbon. I also added some lace to the top of the shoes. I made this ankle thing. The buckles I bought from Wish and they're so cute, perfect doll size. Then I glossed the shoes with Tamiya. As final touches to the outfit, I had to add glitter. Sorry, not sorry, I need that sparkle in my life. To make it easier to attach the head again, I cut off a part of the neck. I also cut some plastic away with an X-Acto knife. Then I remembered to paint the scalp. Huzzah! Painting the scalp helps if there are translucent spots. I also added some stray baby hairs. Then I glued the hair wefts. As I said before, the hair I ordered took too long to arrive, so I decided to use yarn wefts instead, and honestly, I think that might have been for the better. Yarn turns so soft and silky, and it works so nicely on dolls. I make a lot of center partings on my dolls, old habits die hard, but for this one it was more of a choice. Then I just added a ribbon with needles. And what is Alice in Wonderland without a Cheshire cat? The cat is made of a different plastic though that melts in acetone, so I had to be careful. The parts where I rubbed the paint off turned glossy, so I buffed the surface with some sandpaper afterward, then I sprayed with MSC before painting it with acrylics. I decided to keep the mohawk, but paint it. It took a couple of layers with watered down yellow before it turned opaque, but it's worth it to get a smooth surface without brush strokes. Then I made some final details before blushing with pastels. I loved painting this. This time, since it's not vinyl, I could even use Liquitex gloss varnish. And there we go, a little Cheshire kitten! Finally, she's finished! I'm so happy I pulled it off eventually. When things don't arrive in time for projects, it can be pretty stressful, but there is always some way to work around it. I've been experimenting, by the way, trying to make tiny cups in Fimo clay, but I gave up. I think I'll have to make some kind of mold or something. I did manage to make some easy pies and cakes though, so I'm thinking of sharing those in a little mini tutorial. I want to thank my awesome Patreons. Next week I'll be adding another familiar that I hope you'll like. I am so looking forward to sharing that project because it's a rather special one. I'm getting more confident, thus more daring with my sculpting, which is super fun. Then I'm on to my next project. I'm in a very colorful mood at the moment, and I feel like trying more saturated and daring colors. It's not my forte, but, you know, it will be interesting to see how it ends up. So this is what I started with, and this is the result. Honestly, I love it. It was so worth the time and effort, and I liked making her, and the Cheshire kitten is just so cute. I hope you enjoyed watching the process, thank you so much, and until next time, bye!